But back to the virus lockdowns. We're told by premiers like Gladys Berejiklian in New South Wales that we're going to have these lockdowns over our heads until more than 80% of us are vaccinated. Now, that's certainly not the case in Europe, as I've shown you. What about America? Now, we used to treat the US last year like it was a basket case. Worst country in the world for the virus. But who's the basket case now? I'm joined by Sky News US correspondent Annelise Nielsen, who's been filming in the northern state of Minnesota. Annelise, thanks for your time again. Minnesota is still more than 20 COVID deaths a day, but does it still have lockdowns?
Well, Andrew, it's really dropped off quite recently. Even this week it was just 5, which I know in the context of an Australian situation might seem like an extraordinarily high number. But this is what I wanted to show viewers at home. It's not an assessment from me of what's right or wrong, but just what is in America at the moment. Because if you go around right now, everything is getting back to normal. There's that sense that the pandemic's really tapered off and people are learning to live with it. And that's really significant because if you're looking at discussing about whether you need to eradicate this virus completely with lockdowns or you want to approach it slightly differently, this is what life is like here right now. Now, I waited until I was in Minnesota in particular, could have been doing this in Ohio, which was a red state, but there's that politicization of the virus that we've seen in the US. And so I wanted to make the point that this is a blue city in a blue state that took the coronavirus very seriously. The vaccination rates have been really high. For those over the age of 60, it's more than 91%. And so they've hit those very vulnerable populations very well. And this is what life's like here now. So some of this footage was taken at the Mall of America, at one point one of the largest mall in the world, but still one of the largest malls in the world. And you can see in this footage, people are wearing masks if they want to, but there are still plenty of people that are out there getting back to life as normal. They're going out. You can see plenty of grandparents out there with their children. Restaurants are full. Even servers aren't wearing masks. And now it's really seen as a personal choice because the vaccination rates have been high enough that if you wanted to get a vaccine, you can get one by now. And there's plenty of options too. You can have Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson are all there. And so this is what life's like when we do this. Now, I specifically got GoPro Vision as well too, because it gives you that sense of this is what it's like to walk around. There's no editing from me, picking faces and choosing what I want to show you. This is just what it's like to live here. And things are getting back to normal. This is what life can be like, but it's not an assessment of what I think is right or wrong. This is just simply what it is now.
But Annelise, it's interesting, isn't it? You've still got people dying, right? Here we've had not a single death from community infection this year, not one. But to have 20 a day or down to 5 in the state of Minnesota, well, that would seem like, well, figures like that would be an absolute catastrophe here. The whole country would be shut down, not just half of it. I'm just wondering, what's the difference? Is there, I don't know, some sort of indifference about the dying or a sense that, well, look, you had your chance to get the vaccine, you didn't take it, it's on you?
People were really angry about this in the beginning. We know that the US response to the coronavirus was very ad hoc, depending on what state you were in, and there was a lot of frustration with how President Trump handled it, especially in areas like this that lean more blue. But the sense is that most people who've died of coronavirus have had an underlying health condition, and that's certainly true of Minnesota. Bulk of cases here have been among the elderly in nursing homes. Most people who've got it with no underlying health conditions have recovered. Of course, there's the cases of long COVID, but speaking to people on the ground here, I can tell you when they know someone who's had it, they've probably had a bad flu, they've probably felt really sick. There are people who've had long-term ramifications, but people do know those stories of someone who's lost both parents and a cousin in one hit. It's not that there wasn't a sacrifice in it, but there's also the context of, well, there's flu deaths each year as well. And so normally in a year you'd have 700 people die of flu in Minnesota. There's other ways that people die as well. And so there's that context of, look, this is a virus that we're going to have to learn to live with, but everyone's feeling more confident with the vaccines. People who have the vaccinations feel more confident going out, knowing that if they do get coronavirus, they're not going to be in hospital, they're not going to end up in the ICU. And I know quite a few people that have had coronavirus since getting the vaccine, and for them it is a flu. And so that's why it's such a powerful thing psychologically. Offices here, I was going around the CBD, they're back in their offices, they're back around meeting tables. This is after a very long year of being at home, but there's just the sense that they're moving on, that this is over, that they've learned how to manage it day to day. And so that's why it's such a big difference to what we're seeing in Australia.
Well, it's lucky for you, because if the Queensland and Victorian premiers get their way, you'll be stuck in America for a long, long time. You're not coming back here. Borders shut. So enjoy yourself. Now, I understand, Annelise, you've gone to Minneapolis, one of the twin cities in Minnesota, to do some filming for a story on the new race politics. Now, we'll be going to be seeing the results of that later in the week. But I was struck, in the meantime, by this picture of Gwen Berry, an athlete at the US Olympic track and field trials, looking absolutely furious there in third spot, not because she came third, but because the national anthem was played while she was up there. How does that disrespect for the flag and anthem now go down in the US? I mean, why would she even want to be picked for the national team in the first place if she hates the national symbols?
This was a really strange one, because people are pretty set in their opinion about taking a knee. That's been pretty big in the football here. But this one, she basically said that she felt like she was set up and that they played the anthem when she was up there. The expectation, I guess, from her perspective, that they weren't going to play that. But she also didn't seem committed to exactly what she was doing. There was a lot of swaying, turning around, a T-shirt being draped over at one point, calling herself an activist athlete. And in a lot of ways, it's actually quite symbolic of where the race discussion is in the US, because people do feel like they're a bit lost, that there is no good way to turn, and it is leading to kind of confusing aspects like this. Critical race theory is a huge discussion, especially among conservatives in the US at the moment, but you can't underestimate just how much this underpins so much of politics on the left in particular, and that's without casting any judgment on the merits of it, but it's quite fundamental, especially when you're talking to BLM, Antifa kind of activists, that it's not just that there's systemic racism, because most people at some point would reasonably agree that that is the case. It's the fact they want to take everything down with it and say, well, the justice system's racist, so we've got to get rid of it. And police are racist, so we've got to get rid of them and just start from scratch. And most people go, hey, whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. So this is why it's becoming an interesting topic. I am doing some interviews this week about it. Just because it is becoming more of a mainstream topic in the US. And it's often written off as a conservative cause slab. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
No, well, I look forward to them, but I have to say I'm still surprised that someone who's disgusted with the national symbols still wants the national government to pay for her to go to compete in the national team at the Olympics, where they compete under the country's flag. So I don't quite get it, but this is the hypocrisy edition of the Bolt Report tonight, so I'll just add that one in there. Annelise Nielsen, look forward to your reports. Thank you very much for your time.